Ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to another episode 16 to be specific, of Crash the Party, Republican or Democrat, where I, Rick Drogo, a 40-year-old man with a family and lots of responsibilities, jobs, all types of stuff going on, I'm trying to figure out where I land in the political landscape that is 2026. I'm trying to figure out politics, period. And today, we're going to watch two people have a debate on the current state of the Iran war, on whether or not it's going well. So, what we got here is processing. This woman, her name is Batya Ungar Sargon. And this gentleman, his name is Brad Palumbo, detective, PI. And they respect each other. Sounds like they're going to have a little friendly bout. Fight, run. And so let me give you a little background, because I didn't know anything about these two when I found this video. Batya describes herself as a MAGA leftist or left-wing populist. She started as a traditional American liberal leftist in the 2010s, Hillary Clinton supporter in 2016, and a reluctant Biden voter in 2020. In the year 2000, what y'all know about that? What show is that from? Over time, she became a sharp critic of woke media, elite institutions, and the modern Democratic Party's focus on identity politics over class issues. She has called herself a Marxist in interviews and frames her views as a right-wing Marxist or labor-left perspective that prioritizes the working class. I don't know what a Marxist is. What is a Marxist? What is a Marxist? Let's ask Super Grok. A Marxist is a person who adheres to or advocates for Marxism. That doesn't tell me anything. The political, economic, and philosophical theories developed primarily by Karl Marx, and Friedrich Engels in the mid-19th. Core ideas of Marxism. Here we go. The meat and potatoes. Marxism is fundamentally a critique of capitalism and a theory of how history and society evolve. See, this is where I already... I try to figure out one thing and I find another thing that I don't know what it means. Critique of capitalism. I hate to tell all of you if you don't know by now, but I don't know what capitalism is. I'm pretty sure it's not good. So we're going to read a couple of these. I don't want to go too far down a rabbit hole. Maybe I should. Historical materialism. Well, let's just go ahead and... Let me just see what capitalism is real quick. Processing. Capitalism is an economic system where people and businesses privately own resources and companies, and they produce goods or services to make a profit. Hey, I was wrong. That's good, right? Capitalism. I'm all about capitaling my isms. Here is the idea in simple terms. Private ownership. Individuals, not the government, own land, factories, and businesses. W. Profit motive. Businesses try to make money by selling things people want. Based. Market competition. Different businesses compete with each other, which can lead to better products and prices. Clear W. Supply and demand. Prices are mostly determined by how much people want something. Okay. So, capitalism is an economic system where people and businesses privately own resources and companies. So, we live in a capitalism, right? This is capitalism? This is capitalism! you could be in a scenario where you have to say that passionately. I feel like I will be. I promise you that if I don't die before this show pops off, I'm going to be in a debate with somebody where I very seriously and very emotionally filled with passion, I tell them, this is capitalism. I can feel it already. I'm writing in the sands of time right now. All right, so back to what a Marxist is, or Marxism. Marxism is fundamentally a critique of capitalism. Okay, all right. See, that makes sense now. A critique of that, all right, and a theory of how history and society evolve. Okay, so here's the key concepts. Historical materialism. History is driven by material conditions. Okay, history is driven by material conditions, how people produce and reproduce life, rather than ideas, religion, or great individuals. Societies progress through stages: feudalism, capitalism, socialism, communism, due to changes in the mode of production. Okay, class struggles. Society is divided into opposing classes. Under capitalism, the main conflict is between the bourgeoisie, bourgeoisie, Berg 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 Bur Burgaisi, owners of the means of production, factories. I just don't know what I'm reading right now. Class struggle. Society is divided into opposing classes. Under capitalism, the main conflict is between the bourgeoisie, the owners, the owners of the means of production, factories, lands, and capital, and the proletariat, worker who sell their labor. This struggle is the engine of historical change. Okay, but what, this is all fine and dandy. What's the point? What Marxists believe in practice. Okay, this is what we want. Capitalism is inherently unstable and exploitive. I'm just struggling. Exploitive. The state is usually a tool of the ruling class. Private property in the means of production, not personal belongings, should be abolished or heavily socialized. Private property in the means of production. Revolution, or at least radical structural change, is necessary rather than just gradual reforms. And internationalism. Workers of the world unite. Okay, capitalism is inherently unstable and exploitive. Well, everything is unstable and exploitive in 2026. So what are we talking about here? All right, so this lady, back to Batya Ungar Sargon, she describes herself as a right-wing Marxist, which I vaguely understand what that means. But I do for sure understand what capitalism means now. So praise God for that. Now, I told you about her. I know we went off on a rabbit trail, but that's how we do, okay? This is how I get down. I'm really like that. I'm going to figure it out. And that's literally what I got the show for, is to figure this out. So I'm going to own it. And in a year, when Joe Rogan is asking me, about how I got started, I'm going to tell him 7 people watched me figure out what capitalism means. All right, so the next guy, the guy she's talking to, is Brad Palumbo, detective, CI. Dun, 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 dun. I don't know why that's funny to me, but Brad Palumbo is a right-of-center libertarian, often described as libertarian conservative. Come on, Grok. You know what I need to know. What is a libertarian? All right, Grok. A libertarian is someone who believes in maximum individual liberty and minimal government. All right. I can get with that. Libertarianism is a political philosophy that puts personal freedom and voluntary cooperation at the absolute center of its world view. I read that, but I didn't listen to myself read it. Let me do it again. Libertarianism is a political philosophy that puts personal freedom and voluntary cooperation at the absolute center of its worldview. Ladies and gentlemen, make this man a president, because that's what we need. We need a libertarian. Because the government really does want a piece of everything nowadays. Right? Do I own anything? Yeah, I own some stuff. That's the true question. I mean, that's the answer. But they want taxes on everything. All right, core principles of libertarianism. Individual rights. Every person owns themselves. Self-ownership. I can't agree with that. No, just kidding. JK. You have the right to live your life as you see fit as long as you don't violate. Who's not a libertarian? Okay? Tell me that. Tell me why this is a thing. Why is this? Isn't this called being a dude? Why would you not want any of this? Sorry for sniffing in the mic. Non-aggressive principle. The foundation moral rule. It is wrong to initiate force, fraud, or coercion against another person or their property. Force is only justified in self-defense. I like that. Boy, I'm going to protect my property. Private property, free. Okay, so I get it what a libertarian is, and I think I'm one. Okay, I may be. We're figuring stuff out right now. Am I a libertarian who believes in capitalism? Am I getting some labels here? Am I getting labeled right now? Am I labeling myself? Let's save the judgment for episode 2000, okay? I don't necessarily believe I'm a libertarian now, okay? So don't go trying to label me and put me in a box. All right? Don't put me in a box. This is pretty cool. You know, I'm really finding my way. Okay. Whoops, that's not it. That's not it. That's not it. There it is. All right. So back to Brad Palumbo, Detective CI. This guy, let me find it. Okay. Batya, Brad. Okay, Brad Palumbo is a right-of-center libertarianism. All right. Okay, Brad. Oh, libertarian conservative. Libertarian Foundation, strong advocate for free market capitalism. Oh! Capitalism. See, I'm all about capital in my isms. You better remember that. Limited government. Okay. Individual liberty, free speech, and fiscal conservatism. I need to research what fiscal means. You know what I'm saying? Buy me some Jordans. All right. He emphasizes personal responsibility and opposes big government solutions from both the left and the right. He emphasizes personal responsibility and opposes big government solutions from both left and right. I feel like I could get with this, maybe. Social views. Socially liberal on many issues. Supports gay marriage and adoption by same-sex couples. As a gay man himself, okay. Now I get why he's looking at me like that. That boy really putting a hole in the back of my head with them eyeballs. Okay. All right. Don't worry. I don't have anything against gay men. All right. I just am saying it explains the look. A gay man himself, he criticizes woke excess. He criticizes woke excesses in LGBT activism. He criticizes woke excesses. I think that's good, right? So he's telling his own community, hey guys, chill. Let's just do our thing and not make a big deal out of it. right? That's how I am. I'm not going around telling you about my sex life, unless you're my friends. You know what I'm saying? You got to tell your bros. All right. That's enough of me. Identity, politics, and transgender policies for minors. Oh, what the heck? He criticizes that stuff. Transgender policies for minors. Okay. Opposes puberty blockers, hormones. Okay, so I can still get with this guy a little bit. He wants to reclaim the LGBT community from the insane leftists. I like that for this guy. I like that for him. So he critiques. Okay, so we get where they're both at. All right, and we're gonna go ahead and see. It sounds like they might. If they're both, he is right of center, which I guess that means mostly in the center, but he leans to the right. Okay. All right. And then I was going to make a dick joke there, but I'm going to save it. And she is a MAGA leftist. So I'm guessing, it says, or left-wing populist. So, American liberal leftist. Okay, so she's more to the left. All right. So let's check them out. I believe this clip is about 25 minutes long. We don't know if it's going to be any good. We might dub this show after. I might watch this for 5 minutes and be like, these two are unbearable. So let's check it out. Let's crash the party.
So what we are going to debate instead is the war in Iran going well for the U.S.? That is the question on the table, the topic of debate, the thing that Brad and I are going to kick around for the next 20, 25 minutes with your help. So the poll is going to go up. We want you guys to vote in the poll, and we'll keep an eye on that poll. And also, don't forget to put your comments in the comment section, and Cher is going to throw those to us so that we can interact with you guys as well. All right. So Brad, let me just go through what's new on this topic very briefly, and then I want to get your thoughts on this. All right. So the most recent news is that the president is considering keeping the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz ongoing for a little bit longer. He called in, and we have this, Sheriff, you could pull up this headline from Axios. He pulled in a bunch of oil executives to ask them what can be done to mitigate the stress on the American consumer if he wants to use the blockade instead of going back to attacking Iran with bombs in order to force them to give up their nuclear ambitions, which of course was the purpose of this whole operation. I imagine there was some sort of bullying going on there as well. Trump does like to call up CEOs and get their opinion, but also tell them like greedflation will not be accepted under this administration. We could debate about that, Brad, if you have strong opinions about it. The other big story of the week was the UAE has withdrawn from OPEC. Now, I know this sounds like a whole bunch of letters, but OPEC is a sort of alternative source of oil, kind of oil cartel to us, the West. Basically, a whole bunch of nations get together and figure out what the ideal amount of oil on the market is so that they can make the most amount of money, right? Because if there's too much oil on the market, the people producing the oil don't get to make as much money. The UAE has left OPEC, meaning it can now start to produce more oil, which will hopefully bring down the cost of oil. This is a really big deal. This is actually great for the United States, in my view. And I think the president is seeing all of this and thinking, okay, maybe we don't go back to bombing Iran. We have other ways of using economic sanctions, the blockade on the Strait of Hormuz in order to improve our position relative to theirs. All right, so that's where things are at. Poll right now seems to suggest 50-50. We love a 50-50 around here. Is the war in Iran going well for the U.S.? 50% saying yes, 50% saying no. All right, Brad, take it away. What's your view on this question?
Well, there's really so much to unpack about it that it's almost...
I'm just going to go on record right now before they start. If you don't know, I guess I've never really said it, but in my very limited in my limited knowledge that I have on this subject, I want to say that it's not going well. Okay? I'm also anti-war. I guess I would say that. You want to label me something? Label me anti-war unless you're on my doorstep, because then it's It's war. It's Sparta. Okay? This is Sparta. And I will go full insane maniac on you. But I didn't mean to get into all that, but that's the truth. So I'm anti-war, and I don't think this is going well. Probably. That's what I say. And I am open to being wrong.
It's hard to know where to start.
Question.
Well, there's really so much to unpack about it that it's almost hard to know where to start. But I mean, first I'll say that I entered into this. I have kind of some principal objections in principle to what the Trump administration did in Iran. For example, I do believe the way they went about it is unconstitutional. They should seek a declaration of war from Congress before you would commit an act of war. But I will also acknowledge that ship sailed, right? And other presidents have engaged in similar things.
Oh, yeah, like not say that ship didn't sail like last week. It sailed.
No, exactly. So it's like those are objections that I still believe in principle, but I'm not going to raise as like uniquely awful about what Trump did. I also think that I viewed the Iran operation, or I do think it's a war. They say it's not a war, but also we've always been at war with Iran. It's like the rhetoric is all over the place. But so the war, I did view it initially in the context of the Venezuela operation, which I was initially very concerned about. And I still have some like very big picture questions about, but I think was a success objectively, like just looking at it as a military operation. No Americans died. Obviously Maduro is evil and was apprehended. So I was wondering, like, is he going to pull something off like that with Iran, right? Some sort of quick strike in and out, because President Trump campaigned against forever wars, campaigned on no new wars, campaigned on America first, against Middle Eastern entanglements. And I think that's part of his message that I've always resonated with. There's lots of it I haven't ever resonated with. But I thought that was central. So I've kind of, I didn't want to jump the second and say this is I didn't think it was a good idea. I didn't think it was justified, but I'm not going to immediately judge it as a total failure before it even started, because what if he pulled something similar? So where are we these weeks later, right? Because at the start of the war, before the war rather, the Strait of Hormuz was open and oil was flowing freely. The current regime was in place. 13 more U.S. service members were alive now than now. Hundreds have been injured. Somewhere between $500 million to $1 billion a day has been spent. A large number, it's very hard to have like accurate tallies in an ongoing conflict. A large number of Iranian civilians have been killed. Obviously not, I don't believe intentionally, but just that happens in war and it's horrible. And the regime is still in place. We've decimated their military capacity, but I'm not sure what we've actually achieved. Replacing a regime with other officials, arguably more hardline elements, and we're at this stalemate with the Strait of Hormuz. They now have this diplomatic lever that we didn't really know that they could execute, of kind of holding the global economy hostage. And I don't believe, and am unclear on some of the Trump administration's justifications for this war, like the whole nuclear issue, which we can discuss. So to me, there's been tremendous human and financial cost. And yet, when I compare where we were before this to where we are after, I see very little achieved that I think was an imminent threat.
Okay.
Okay, let's go ahead and put W's in the chat for Detective Palumbo. Let's go ahead and say this guy is based. I think I'm using that word right. I am 42, but he sounds like he's spitting facts. If you don't agree, I'd love to hear why. I am listening and I am reading and I want to know. But where did he lie? Tell me where he lied. They obviously have more to talk about with the nuclear stuff, but my boy was spitting facts.
So much there to unpack. They gave 3 goals the night that this was announced, that Trump announced that he gave this sort of 2 a.m. address, and in it he laid out 3 goals, and they have been pretty consistent on what those are. So they said they wanted to destroy Iran's navy. They said they wanted to destroy their ballistic capabilities, and they said they wanted to make it impossible for them to ever achieve a nuclear weapon. So 2 of those they've achieved, I think by your own admission. The Navy, they've sunk, right? You said that they've destroyed their current sort of military capabilities. The nuclear thing, they still have the nuclear dust, and they still have not yet committed to never producing a nuclear weapon. They are currently facing down the prospect of, so they're producing oil, right? But the oil, because of our blockade, can't go anywhere. We're not allowing any of that oil to be sold. So what's happening is their tankers are filling up with oil. And at some point, like the storage capacity is going to hit capacity, at which point they're going to have to turn off the spigots. Now, when it's my understanding that with old pipes, you can't just turn them back on after that. So they are facing like real financial, like just complete ruination. To me, that suggests that that one remaining item on the list of objectives, 2 of the objectives have been achieved. There's one remaining one, and they are like literally running out of options. Trump's idea to counter blockade them was utterly genius. You say that the strait was open before the war, but they had the capacity to close it, right? To do what they're doing now, which is to create this big global, energy crisis, which we're going to get into. I think we're benefiting from it tremendously, because a lot of the ships that would have gone to them are now coming to us to get our oil, which is great for us. But they could have. So we have a regime, an Islamic regime, a genocidal regime that wants to destroy the West, which was wherever it was in terms of like distance from achieving a nuclear weapon, it was trying to achieve one, right? So it was, let's say, X amount.
We should come back to that.
Let's circle back to that. Okay. At the time, they had this thing we didn't know they had, which is the ability to close the Strait of Hormuz, right? And they had, X amount of ballistic missiles. Like, however early one could find out that they could have closed the Strait of Hormuz, that was the time to do it, right? Because in a year from now, when they were that much closer to having a nuclear weapon, when they had that many more ballistic missiles, when their Navy was that much bigger and stronger, they also could have done this, right? So it being open, but being subject to their ability to close it, it wasn't really open. You had a genocidal regime trying to arrive at a situation where it had the Strait of Hormuz, ballistic missiles, a Navy, and a nuclear weapon. So like at some point, somebody had to do something. And it seems to me like every other president kicked the can down the road because they were not willing to pay the political, the financial cost of it. And it's pretty amazing that Trump was willing to do that.
To me, it sounds like she's saying one of the good reasons about us doing this is because now we know that they can close the Strait of Hormuz if they want to. And we found out now, which is better than later. Which to me, my first initial reaction, I'm not going to say she's wrong, because obviously that is a fact. But in my opinion, my first thing is they should have thought about that before they started this. Like, you guys don't have the people in the White House to brainstorm this kind of stuff and say, hey, well, what if they do this? Okay, is first number one. And then my second thought was, you're reaching. You're looking for a reason to say that this was good. This wasn't an issue before. It's like when my kids create a problem. Or as adults, we do this. Where we will create a problem out of thin air. I start a new hobby, let's say. Well, now that new hobby, even though I'm doing it for fun, now I'm bothered because, let's say, I need more money to do that hobby. And now I'm upset because I don't have that extra money. Well, I shouldn't be upset about it because it wasn't even a problem beforehand. So this is what I'm saying is this wasn't an issue. And I just kind of feel like you're creating something for the argument. But I could be wrong. Tell me if I'm wrong. And also, these are just my first thoughts. I'm not saying she's completely wrong. These are my initial reactions to what she's saying.
Because somebody had to do it. Like, we all agree, like, Iran cannot achieve a nuclear weapon, right? Well, actually, let's start there. Do you agree with that?
So I think obviously I don't want Iran to have a nuclear weapon.
Okay.
If that's what you're asking.
Yeah.
Certainly I don't want them to. I don't believe they were on the cusp of having one. And the reason I don't believe that is because DNI Tulsi Gabbard testified in March of 2025 that they had not even authorized that and were not pursuing it. Then I was told by the Trump administration, right? I'm reading it, it's still up on the White House today, in June of 2025, Iran's nuclear facilities have been obliterated and suggestions otherwise are fake news. His highly successful, decisive, precise strikes against their nuclear facilities totally decimated it and set it back many years and decades, is what they said. So I then, a few months later, after this bombing campaign, where the White House is telling me, with the official White House stationery, and it's on whitehouse.gov, they've totally destroyed the nuclear program. They're now a few months later telling me, oh crap, now we have to
get
actually
that drink. She got to
wage
take
a
a
war
drink.
against this country to stop their nuclear program. To me, there's a credibility crisis inside the administration and with their messaging about this that undercuts the ability to credibly claim that they were on the verge of having a nuclear weapon. I don't believe that to be the case, and I also think there are other paths, including ones that President Trump ripped up, like the Obama-era deal, to preventing them from getting a nuclear weapon that don't involve a costly military conflict that leaves U.S. service members and civilians dead and cost billions of dollars.
Okay, let me read some comments. The first one says,
Now, why don't you answer that? Why don't you respond to him? Because that boy was spitting bars. I like this guy. You know, I'm feeling like I'm kind of knowing what's going on up in here. You know what I'm saying? I might be running for Congress next.
I think most of your arguments, I think he's talking to me, are lazy and childish, but I do appreciate you doing a show like this. So I think most of your arguments, I think he's talking to me. Let me read some comments.
Whoa, what? This is the comments? Let me hear this. They better not be trash talking my boy Brad Palumbo.
The first one says, I think most of your arguments, I think he's talking to me, are lazy and childish, but I do appreciate you doing a show like this so I can get both sides, no matter how crazy the Trump supporters say.
Lazy and childish, that's not right. A reach. I would say a reach. A bit of a reach.
We really appreciate you being here. Thank you for watching the show, even though you think I'm crazy and childish. I'm so glad you're coming. It means a lot to me. And, you know, I hope that every day.
Wow. This just goes to show people hear all the time. People hear what they hear. She said, thanks for calling me lazy and crazy and childish when he said lazy.
I bring you somebody who you can respect more than me and who you enjoy hearing from. And thanks for appreciating what we're doing here, even if you're not a big fan. Keep coming back. All right, next question from Blair. Gas not as high as June 2022 under Biden, which was $5.01. That is true. So Cher, let's pop up the latest on gas.
Let's see, 2022. Was I driving a diesel? I'm pretty sure I was. My diesel, maybe a week or two ago, was $6 a gallon for diesel. I don't ever remember paying that much. Now, I don't have the best memory. And 2022, I was still drinking, so I don't remember. But this person says gas not as high as June 2022 under Biden, which was 501. But who cares? What does that got to do with this argument? We understand where the gas is at. That doesn't have anything to do with it. Blair Carson, get out of here.
Gas. This cracks me up. So, all right. So a month ago, it was at $3.98. A week ago, $4. Currently $4.23. And 2 months ago, before this even started, it was below $3 for the first time in about 6 years. Before below $3 a gallon. What's so funny is that you know, you and I both used to, I don't do it anymore, but I used to do the CNN panel at 10 p.m. And I would always say, you know, Trump has gotten gas so cheap, and they would deny it. Brad, they would deny that this was the case until the day it went up. And then suddenly you could turn on CNN and they would say, he got gas so low and now it's so high, right? Like they literally would not talk about it until they could criticize him over it. All right, let me read a few more comments and I want to.
But isn't the flip side? I agree, and that's quite funny. isn't the flip side of that also true, though? That throughout the whole Biden years, you could turn on Fox News and you could hear about how Biden single-handedly was causing high gas prices. And now that there's high gas prices under Trump, well, it's all geopolitical. It's all outside of the president's control. It's temporary. I do think that there's, in general, when it comes to gas prices in particular, a heavily biased coverage and attribution for them. Obviously, presidents have some influence, but it's a lot of things go into it.
Well, I mean, obviously, this is because of the war in Iran, right? Like, I don't think there's any doubt that like this is the result of Trump's actions, right? Gas is clear now because of a gamble Trump took, in which he decided that, you know, it's more important to protect our grandchildren from a nuclear-armed genocidal Islamic regime that wants a caliphate over the entire globe than it is to have gas at $3 a gallon. Now, how long this lasts, I think that's open for interpretation. Gas goes up much quicker than it comes down. But yeah, I mean, I think even Trump himself would acknowledge, you know, yeah, this is because of something I did. I think I made the gamble that it was worth it.
Do you acknowledge, though, that that's not what he promised? Because
I heard Trump say about the gas prices being high. He said, yeah, tell everybody that they're paying that because they're paying for our government and they're paying for our soldiers at war and they're paying for that stuff. So it's a good thing, which no comment.
Explicitly promised coming into prices are going to go down. He said over and over again, which was never really realistic. You don't see deflation in a modern economy.
Yeah, but he said it.
Grocery prices will go down when I'm president. Gas prices will go down. And at least so far, that's definitely not the case.
They did go down. Like the whole first year they went down, right? So before he invaded Iran, they were under $3 a gallon. Gas was under $3 a gallon for the first time in like 5 or 6 years. So he did get it down. It's just that he then said, you know what, there's something more important than that. I don't hold against somebody what they campaign on unless they're really doing a 180. Like if it's on a yes, no binary, right? Like, you know, they campaign on getting trans women out of women's sports and then they come into office and immediately like throw that away, or like someone like Gavin Newsom who pretended he was going to do that and then didn't do like that kind of thing I would hold against someone. But like what politician doesn't say I'm going to get prices down?
Well, isn't no new wars and then you start a new war? Isn't that kind of a yes, no 180?
Right.
So, I mean, this is kind of like a question of definitions. He has said for 40 years, Iran cannot achieve a nuclear weapon, right?
Yes.
So like
he said no new war, period.
I think what he meant by no new wars is like, we're not going to put boots on the ground to do a regime change. We're not going to bring democracy to Iran. Like that is not going to happen. But like, are we going to protect ourselves with a like month-long, you know, military operation that gets rid of the Ayatollah Khomeini and replaces him with his son who's barely alive and, you know, try our best to get a nuclear deal? Like, I don't think that that's necessarily, and the proof is in the pudding, right? Like 85% of Republicans support this. And the more MAGA you think yourself, the more you support this incursion.
When have you ever got polled? I've never been polled and asked these questions. Where do they figure this out? Is it on Facebook?
So I think that's kind of, all right, let me read a couple more comments, then we'll get to that. All right, Paul says,
bro's burying her, honestly.
$4 a gallon gas is make or break America. That's wild considering how much it is in other developed countries. I think maybe he meant is or is not make or break. I do think if gas is above $4 a gallon at the midterms, that's going to make or break like the house for sure. I mean, I think there's no two questions about that. But yeah, it is still cheaper here than other places. And I think it's cheaper than it could have been if he hadn't done the Venezuela operation. We could debate that. Robert says the Navy is just using their boots to go swimming in warm waters, troubled waters. All right. So Brad, you don't worry that your like future children are going to have to deal with an adversary like Iran having a nuclear weapon. You really believe that so you think Steve Witkoff, for example, when he said that they bragged to him that they had, you know, enough 60% enriched uranium to build 10 bombs, you think he's just lying?
Well, I don't know if he's lying. I do know that I've heard enough contradictory statements from this administration, like the ones I mentioned, that I don't know what to believe. And that's one of the reasons they should not be so dishonest. Obviously, it's not new. Like White House officials are always dishonest. But then when you are talking about things of the utmost significance, it's hard to believe you. So like Do I believe Steve Witkoff? Do I believe Tulsi Gabbard? Do I believe the White House then or the White House now? That's a real problem for me. And I guess the thing is, so you say like the Iranian regime is a genocidal regime, and I understand why you say that, but I do not believe it is a suicidal regime, right? And so even if they would love to see an end to America, hate the West, I don't dispute any of that. I think though they are still ultimately like their Navy, they were not about to attack America. I find that directly start a war with us, right? In the same way, were they to obtain a nuclear weapon, which they're years and years away from doing so. So what my first emphasis is, we should be negotiating, instead of waging a war against them, negotiating a deal to stop them from getting a weapon, right? There's many levers the administration could pull to get them to the table that don't involve outright conflict. And then if they were to have a nuclear weapon, I mean, we don't know the exact situation, but Kim Jong-un, even as crazy as he is ultimately not suicidal. And anybody who attacked...
But he's not currently funding terror.
All right. I've had about enough of these two. Get out of here. All right. I need some little intro music, some like in transitional music. I'm gonna get some stuff like that. Anyways, excuse me. That was good. I really enjoyed that. And if you want to finish watching it, then you can click the link in the description and tell me what you think. Obviously, she's not coming up with anything new. I like both of them. I like the way that they were having the discussion. You know, that's the way it's supposed to be. Real nice. They weren't cutting each other off. You know, and he was pretty much just hitting her with them facts. And I like to see that. I'd like to do something like this one day. I'm going to do stuff like this. But I need to be more knowledgeable about the topic, at least a little bit. You know, I need to know what capitalism is, and I need to know if I'm a libertarian or not. You know, I need to make sure I know if there's communion in the democracy when the library shut down, you know. And if someone's trying to tell me that and I don't understand it, well, that's not really a great conversation to pay attention to. So, anyways, what do you think? Do you think the war is going well? I don't. I would say that based on what I know. I'm going to go ahead and agree with my private PI, Brad Palumbo, and say it's not going well. I'm glad it is where it is, as opposed to where we thought it might be going last week. So, praise God for that. I still pray for Trump, and I pray for everyone in the White House. I support them because they are in charge of the country. That's the most important part. So we should, you know, unless we're trying to take them down, we should be trying to prop them up. And the only way I can do that right now is with prayer and the show, ultimately, to try to bring unity to our country and peace and love, you know, like I do in my house. That's what I do. That's what I do at work. And that's what I do on the internets, on the interwebs. Well, thank you so much for crashing the party with me. It's episode 16. I'm really kind of feeling myself lately, and by that I just mean I'm being comfortable being myself. And I hope you like that, and if you don't, then there's the door. But I really do love you either way, and I hope you come back to see me in episode 17. I'm going to drop it. You be waiting. You be watching, and I love you.